Today we're going to be laughing at James Franco's novel. I'm not going to spend time justifying why I chose to read a book that I knew I wouldn't like. I have a video all about how I like bad books and why I read them, so you can watch that if you're interested. Today we're just here to read some bad writing and have a good time. So, as usual, I'm doing a terrible job of being topical. This book came out in 2013, and I don't think anybody even read it then, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. This book was somehow both better and worse than I expected it to be. I have read a little bit of James Franco's poetry, which is truly terrible, and on a sentence level, I actually don't think he's the worst writer. I think he actually has a decent idea of how to balance dialogue with summary and things like that. It's just that the dialogue and the summary and everything is terrible. This book is called Actors Anonymous. It's obviously loosely based around the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that could be an interesting framing device. He could do interesting things with that, but he doesn't really. He basically just rephrases the 12 steps to be roughly about acting. Also, this book doesn't have a plot. It's not really a novel. It's more like a series of vignettes interspersed with ramblings about movies. I think James Franco intended for this to be an experimental novel, but I really wouldn't even call it that. An experimental novel needs to be a little bit more thoughtful than this. I think his thought process went something like this. I think James Franco thinks that good literature is edgy and confusing, and so he figured that if he wrote a book that is edgy and confusing, that would make for good literature. If you've ever been in a writing class, you've probably encountered this type of writing from someone who thinks they need to be edgy, they need to swear a lot, they need violence and immoral, unethical, unlikable characters, like not just one, but every single character is like that. If that's your thing, read Actors Anonymous. So in the 12 steps sections where we're centered around the 12 steps, and it's basically just like aphorism style, just paragraphs about movies. James Franco doesn't even pretend to be anyone besides James Franco, that's pretty clear. And yeah, I promised you bad writing, so let's get into some bad writing. I used to care about how I looked. Now I don't care as much. Maybe it's because I'm so handsome. Okay, James. Okay, this was really funny. So I bought a used copy. Obviously, I didn't want to spend a lot of money on a book I knew I wasn't going to like. But the previous owner of this book intricately wrote notes in the margins, but only for the first chapter. She clearly didn't finish this book, but like every sentence she has these replies, and she's clearly like a huge James Franco fan, and it's really funny. So there's this line, "I am a good actor, but sometimes I look like a bad actor, and I don't care." And she wrote in all caps, "Don't you get down on yourself, Franco. I think you're great." Okay, I don't think his ego needs any boosting, but there you go. Okay, here's a paragraph of James Franco trying to have original prose, but it just kind of comes out really weird. "Oh," I said, and looked at her white cheek. "It made me aware of how we have skin over bones, and there are different shapes underneath that are arbitrary. There was something under my skin that wanted to come to the surface and grab her." I also need to talk about the fact that James Franco is absolutely obsessed with gay men. This book is really homophobic. So when I said it was worse than I expected, I guess I expected it to be bad, but I didn't expect it to be incredibly sexist, racist, and homophobic, but especially homophobic. It's bizarre. So in the very first story, the main character is basically assaulted by a man. This man kisses him, without his consent, and he says, "The gay kiss made me excited, like life was happening." And then he drives, this is an actor character, he drives to this acquaintance woman's house, this woman he has a crush on who he barely knows, breaks into her apartment and tells her that he loves her because he's all stirred up by the gay kiss, which is really an assault. So yeah, I tried to keep track of all the predatory gay men in this book, but I kind of lost count, which is not great, obviously. So the sections that are just sort of aphorisms and ramblings about movies read like a stoned guy at a party who thinks he's just the smartest person who's ever lived. Like sections like this. "Maybe when things are unstable, entertainment is just as influential. A nice escape, they say. But if your life is an entertainment, is it an escape? And if everyone just watches videos now, aren't the videos life? And real life is the escape." And there's this passage, "That's one of the big secrets. Make your characters interested in something, striving for something, in need of something, good at something. This will make them likable and interesting." Okay, that's not a big secret. That's an incredibly famous quote. I think it's Kurt Vonnegut who said, your characters need to want something even if it's just a glass of water. So yeah, not a big secret, more like a well-known piece of advice. Okay, trigger warning. I guess I should have said that at the beginning, but especially for here on out, there's this incredibly disturbing chapter called Experiences about, once again, an actor who says right off the bat that he has raped a woman in the past. He doesn't seem to feel bad about it at all. And then he tries to get into this acting class, and the teacher says that he has to have some kind of life experience, like maybe he's not experienced enough to take the class. And he says that he's experienced enough because he has raped a woman. And then that's where the chapter ends. The teacher never responds. Edgy. Cool, cool, cool. Then we have an incredible chapter called Windsor Girl. It is from the perspective of a woman, so this is very exciting. If you would like, you can guess in the comments how long you think it takes James Franco to start describing this woman's body in excruciating detail. Again, from her perspective. I'll wait. It's the 4th paragraph. You might have guessed sooner than that, actually. But here's the 1st paragraph. It's a doozy, okay? I'm just a stupid little girl who wants to be an actor. I'm just picturing him. Okay, woman's perspective. I'm just a stupid little girl. I'm just a stupid little girl who wants to be an actor. James wouldn't want me writing this, but I've taken over. Ooh, it's getting meta. I know I'm young and everything I have to say is cliche, but I also feel like I have a right because he took my virginity. Maybe he took a lot of girls' virginities, I don't know. Well, maybe I do know, and yes, he did, but I'm pretty damn sure he didn't like any of them, at least the young virginal ones, as much as me. I'm not even gonna comment on it. You can form your own opinions about this book, about James Franco. Feel free. Okay, I'm trying really hard to keep this kind of PG, but it's hard because this book is full of swears, so I have to omit, like, some of my favorite parts that I don't really want to read on my YouTube channel, but just know that it's not my fault. It's because James Franco can hardly write a paragraph without a lot of explicit language. We screeched down Broadway, yelling because we wanted our voices to sow themselves into the night, because it felt like New York had opened up, like a big orifice, a ragged mouth, or, and in a deep, unheard voice said, "Here is your wish come true." It was dark except for the streetlights through the window. I kept thinking of the word haunted for no reason. Nothing else was in my head except that I was from Windsor, Canada. What? Clearly he just doesn't have anything to say. He can't picture this perspective and he's like, what did I decide about this character? Oh, she's from Windsor, Canada. So she's probably thinking about that. Okay, later on in this chapter, this character literally calls James Franco a genius because of his role in Pineapple Express, of all movies. The only person I would recommend this book to is James Franco's therapist, if he has one, but I don't think he does. In a chapter called McDonald's 1, we have what I think is the 3rd predatory gay man in this book, if I am keeping track correctly. And we also have some racial commentary. Are you ready to hear James Franco's brilliant observations? Here we go. The nicest one was Marcia. She was tall and had a bunch of gold teeth like caramels. Juan worked the grill. He was shaped like a soft triangle with a huge bulging groin area and a super small head. His face was compact and smoothed over like a baby's. He spoke no English, but I could tell from his little squeaks in Spanish that he was very stupid. He worked in the back, cooking the meat with all the smoke, and he was always smiling. Something was always pleasing his little dinosaur brain. So I probably don't have to explain why that's... I'm really disturbed that you don't even know what this guy is saying, but you assume that he's stupid. That's really not great. And then there's this dialogue section where someone says, "You're the first white dude I've ever seen working in a McDonald's." Okay, I know you're rich and famous and out of touch, but have you ever been to a McDonald's in like a white neighborhood? Do white people work at McDonald's? We have a great section of James Franco once again trying to be really original and deep. I chewed and sipped from the soda. McDonald's burgers are really slim, but I like that. They're almost like eating air, kind of like kissing Karen. It was there, but it also wasn't. She thought I was a guy named Jim from Brooklyn. Maybe I was. The streetlights on Ventura reflected off my windshield and made the burger taste like candy. Did it now? Here's another section that is pretty explicitly about James Franco. I am staring at a photo of the actor's backside. Okay, the word the actor is in blue. Ooh, experimental. It's a nice backside, one that has been used with varying degrees of success in his films. Sometimes it reveals character, sometimes it's just too much ass in the face. And now that I mention it, it is an ass that has been speculated about more than most. The big question, is it a gay ass or a straight ass? Oh my god. Oh my god. I am not going to speculate on James Franco's sexuality. That is his business. If you're bi, I'm very happy for you. That's wonderful. Step one, regardless, is you need to stop writing books about predatory gay men. Once again, in the trying to be experimental, trying to be deep category, we have this amazing chapter. I wonder if I can just show you some stuff from it. It's literally just a conversation between two people, but instead of using dialogue tags and making it easy to understand, it goes back and forth with footnotes. So like footnote number 1 is one person, footnote number 2 is another person, and then the footnotes are just like scattered randomly at the top. They're not actually even footnotes, they're just numbers. It makes no sense. Just because it's confusing doesn't mean it's art. Okay, we've got some really brilliant descriptive writing from James Franco. She was the angel, the actor's girlfriend. Think of all the best attributes that can be found in a young woman, and those are what she consisted of. Sure, fine, I'll do all the work. You're only the author of the book. She had a tight stomach and a magic smile that tinkled and said natural and friendly and pretty. But this is all too specific. All that should be understood is that she was perfect. I don't think it's too specific. I think you could be a lot more specific, actually. More sections that James should probably send to his therapist. No more autobiography. All you do is just write about your conquests and pretend that it's literature. Okay, so like he has a self-awareness that is just, it's just shocking and confusing that he could actually understand that and yet continue to do it. Why are you writing about yourself? You're not that interesting. You're just a stupid actor that is taking advantage of these young girls and then telling on yourself. Well, that's good to know. This is a single sentence that I had to share. The seduction of the virgin was as smooth as a bullet through a birthday cake. There's this really horrifying section that I don't even really want to talk about where a character's girlfriend is raped, and then the boyfriend is so disturbed by this that he cheats on her. Like I said, I expected this to be kind of a fun experience of just making fun of James Franco's writing. I did not expect it to be so horrifying. And I'm omitting a lot of other stuff. Oh, there's a ton of ableism as well. I'm omitting a lot of the most horrifying stuff. All of the characters in this book also seem to really hate everybody. They're like teenagers. It's really exhausting. He was part Swedish or something. He made me think of candy canes stuck in people's asses and gray rooms where people said nothing but inanities. Whenever I looked at him, I started hating myself, and I would chant suicide in my head over and over, just a little whisper in my head. Okay. We've got some really amazing verb choices coming up. Are you ready? I walked down Sunset to hide, to see what was there. The usual was there. I sat in a booth with some people I knew. We sat and looked at each other and didn't say anything good. I drank a few things and looked around the place. I couldn't work up the energy to meet anyone new. Those are words. Those are some words. You could use those words. It's not very interesting. We've got some more brilliant social, racial commentary. Asian, Latino, Black, Middle Eastern, and Jewish actors generally get the shaft as far as the types of roles being offered. Oh yeah, and women too. So I hope you enjoyed this. I had to read a pretty long, terrible book to make this video. I really like reading bad books, I like watching bad movies, but you know, there's good bad and there's bad bad. Like making fun of The Room is a good time, but watching the new iteration of Cats is just miserable, and you kind of can't know going in which it's going to be. This was a lot less fun than I thought it was going to be. It was a lot more disturbing and upsetting than I expected, but I got a video out of it. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Okay, bye!